Changing climates have a profound impact on the distribution of various species, triggering a complex chain of events that reverberates throughout ecosystems. As temperatures rise and weather patterns shift due to factors like global warming, species are forced to adapt or migrate in search of suitable environments. This process of migration is both a survival strategy and a significant challenge with far-reaching consequences for ecosystems and the delicate web of species interactions. The dance of adaptation and migration. Imagine a scenario where a forested area gradually becomes warmer and drier due to climate change. The plants and animals that have thrived there for generations suddenly find their home becoming less hospitable. In response, species might embark on a journey to find new habitats that suit their preferences for temperature, water availability, and food sources. This movement is often driven by a powerful instinct for survival, a natural dance of adaptation and migration. Challenges in finding new homes. However, the journey to find new homes is fraught with challenges. Picture a polar bear that relies on sea ice to hunt for seals. As the ice melts due to warming temperatures, the bear must travel farther to find food, expending more energy and facing increased competition with other bears. Similarly, plants accustomed to certain temperature ranges may struggle to establish themselves in new locations, affecting the animals that depend on them for food and shelter. Species interactions can also be disrupted. Imagine a bird species that migrates to a specific area at a certain time of year to feed on insects. If the insect's life cycle changes due to shifting temperatures, the bird might arrive too early or too late to find an adequate food supply. This can lead to population declines, affecting other animals that rely on the bird as a food source. Consequences for ecosystems. The consequences of changing species distribution ripple throughout ecosystems. Let's take a coral reef as an example. Coral reefs are home to a diverse array of species that have evolved to coexist in specific temperature ranges and conditions. As ocean temperatures rise due to climate change, coral bleaching occurs, where corals expel their symbiotic algae and lose their vibrant colors. This disrupts the intricate relationships between corals, fish, and other organisms that rely on the reef for food, shelter, and protection. Without healthy corals, entire food webs can unravel, leading to cascading effects on the entire ecosystem. Furthermore, as species migrate or adapt to new environments, they can come into contact with species they didn't interact with before. In some cases, this can lead to competition for resources or the introduction of new predators, upsetting the balance that had been established over time. Conservation and mitigation efforts. Recognizing the challenges posed by changing climates, conservationists and scientists are working tirelessly to mitigate the impacts on species distribution and interactions. Protected areas. Establishing and properly managing protected areas can provide safe havens for species to adapt and thrive. And these areas ensure that critical habitats remain intact, allowing species to continue their natural interactions. Corridor creation. Creating migration corridors, pathways that connect different habitats, allows species to move more freely in response to changing conditions. This can help prevent isolation and increase genetic diversity. Assisted migration. In some cases, humans might need to step in to facilitate the movement of species to new, suitable habitats. This involves careful planning to avoid unintended consequences. Climate mitigation. Addressing the root cause of changing climates by reducing carbon emissions and taking steps to mitigate global warming can ultimately provide a more stable environment for species to adapt within their current ranges. The vibrant and breathtaking world beneath the ocean's surface is home to coral reefs, underwater ecosystems of extraordinary diversity and beauty. However, this beauty is under threat due to the alarming rise in ocean temperatures and the increasing levels of carbon dioxide, or CO2, in the atmosphere. These environmental changes are triggering a phenomenon known as coral bleaching, causing corals to lose their vibrant colors and the crucial symbiotic algae that sustain them. Coral reefs, biodiversity hotspots. Imagine stepping into an underwater city where an intricate web of life thrives. Coral reefs are precisely that, bustling communities composed of coral polyps, tiny animals that create calcium carbonate skeletons, forming the backbone of the reef structure. These reefs hold a remarkable variety of marine life, providing shelter, food, and breeding grounds for countless species of fish, invertebrates, and plants. In a sense, coral reefs are like the rainforests of the sea, brimming with biodiversity and ecological significance. The symbiotic dance of corals and algae. Coral reefs owe their vibrant colors to a remarkable partnership between coral polyps and tiny photosynthetic organisms called zooanthellae. These algae live within the coral's tissues, capturing sunlight and converting it into energy through photosynthesis. In return, the coral provides the algae with shelter and nutrients. The symbiotic relationship is a delicate dance that sustains the health and productivity of the entire reef ecosystem. The bleaching phenomenon. However, this intricate dance is vulnerable to disruptions caused by rising ocean temperatures and increased CO2 levels. When the ocean becomes too warm or too acidic due to a higher CO2 concentration, corals experience stress. This stress prompts the corals to expel the zooxanthellae algae from their tissues, leading to a loss of color, the phenomenon known as coral bleaching. As the colorful algae are expelled, the corals appear pale or even white, exposing their calcium carbonate skeletons beneath. Without their algal partners, corals lose a significant source of nutrition and energy, making them weaker and more susceptible to disease. If the stressful conditions persist for an extended period, corals may die, leading to the degradation of entire reef ecosystems. Ocean temperature and CO2 impact. Imagine a day at the beach with the sun's rays warming the water. Now picture these rising temperatures occurring on a global scale due to climate change, particularly driven by the excessive release of CO2 into the atmosphere from human activities like burning fossil fuels. This increase in atmospheric CO2 not only contributes to the warming of the planet, but also leads to ocean acidification, the ocean absorbing CO2 becoming more acidic and affecting the availability of carbonate ions that corals need to build their skeletons. As ocean temperatures continue to rise, corals are subjected to prolonged periods of heat stress. This triggers bleaching events on a larger scale, affecting reefs around the world. In recent decades, the frequency and severity of these bleaching events have increased significantly due to human-induced climate change. Consequences for coral reefs and beyond. Coral bleaching poses severe consequences for coral reefs and the marine ecosystems they support. Ecosystem collapse. When corals bleach and die, the entire ecosystem faces collapse. Fish, invertebrates, and other organisms that rely on the reef for food and shelter lose their homes and sources of sustenance. Coastal protection. Coral reefs act as natural barriers, protecting coastlines from storms and erosion. As reefs degrade due to bleaching, they become less effective at buffering the impact of waves and storms, putting coastal communities at risk. Biodiversity loss. The destruction of coral reefs results in the loss of biodiversity. Many species, some of which are yet to be discovered, depend on these reefs for their survival. Economic impact. Coral reefs contribute significantly to coastal economies through tourism, fishing, and other industries. The decline of reefs due to bleaching affects livelihoods and local economies. Hope on the horizon. While the threats of coral bleaching are dire, there is hope for the future. Conservation efforts such as the establishment of marine protected areas, reducing pollution, and addressing climate change can help protect and restore coral reefs. Scientists are also exploring techniques to grow and transplant corals to degraded reefs, offering a glimmer of hope for their recovery. The fight to save coral reefs and combat coral bleaching is a global responsibility that requires collective action to reduce CO2 emissions, preserve habitats, and promote sustainable practices. By understanding the intricate relationship between rising ocean temperatures, CO2 levels, and coral bleaching, we can work towards a future where these breathtaking underwater landscapes continue to thrive and inspire generations to come. In the intricate tapestry of life on Earth, migration is a remarkable phenomenon that connects species across the vast distances, revealing the interconnectedness of ecosystems. Birds soar across continents, whales traverse oceans, and mammals journey through landscapes, all in search of food, breeding grounds, and suitable climates. However, the harmonious rhythm of these migrations is being disrupted by changing climate conditions, leading to altered migration routes and timing. This disruption not only affects the species undertaking these journeys, but also sends ripples through the ecosystems they inhabit, highlighting the delicate balance of nature's interconnected web. The dance of migration. Imagine being a bird embarking on an epic journey from your breeding grounds in one part of the world to your wintering grounds in another. You've perfected this route over generations, relying on specific landmarks, the position of the sun, and even the Earth's magnetic field to guide you. Your timing is impeccable, ensuring you arrive at your destination when food is abundant and temperatures are favorable. This migratory dance is essential for your survival and the continuation of your species. Impact of changing climate conditions. Now consider the impact of changing climate conditions on this intricate dance. Picture your breeding grounds becoming warmer earlier than usual due to global warming. The insects you depend on for food might emerge earlier as well. However, your migratory route remains the same, and you arrive at your destination only to find a mismatch between your timing and the availability of food. This can lead to reduced breeding success and declining populations. Altered migration routes. Changing climate conditions can also alter the landscapes along migration routes. Imagine you're a caribou that migrates over vast distances to find food in the Arctic tundra. As temperatures warm, the tundra becomes less snowy, affecting the availability of the plants you rely on for sustenance. To adapt, you might need to travel even farther north to cooler regions, which could lead to conflicts with other caribou herds or exposure to new predators. Ecosystem impact. Altered migration patterns have far-reaching consequences for ecosystems. Food web disruption. Imagine being a predator, waiting for the arrival of a specific migratory species. If that species changes its timing or route, your primary food source might dwindle. This can disrupt the entire food web, affecting predators, prey, and other interconnected species. Pollination and seed dispersal. Many migratory animals play a vital role in pollination and seed dispersal. If their migrations are disrupted, it can impact plant populations and the animals that rely on them for food and shelter. Population dynamics. Imagine a species that migrates to a region to breed and raise its young during the warm season. If the timing of this migration shifts due to climate change, the availability of resources like food and suitable nesting sites might not align with the needs of the young, affecting their survival rates. Species competition. As migration patterns change, different species might find themselves sharing habitats they didn't previously overlap in. This can lead to increased competition for resources and potential conflicts. The domino effect. The altered migration of one species can set off a domino effect throughout ecosystems. For instance, imagine a bird that usually migrates from North America to Central America for the winter. Due to changing climate conditions, it decides to stay in North America. This might lead to an overpopulation of the bird in its wintering grounds, affecting the availability of food and potentially leading to declines in other species that rely on the same resources. Conservation and adaptation. Understanding the impacts of altered migration patterns is crucial for conservation efforts. Protected areas. Creating and maintaining protected areas along migration routes can provide safe havens for species to rest and refuel during their journeys. Habitat restoration. Restoring habitats in key migration areas helps ensure that species find suitable stopover sites and breeding grounds. Climate resilience corridors. Establishing corridors that connect different habitats can allow species to adapt their routes in response to changing conditions, promoting genetic diversity and survival. Global collaboration. Addressing the root cause of altered migrations requires global efforts to reduce carbon emissions and mitigate climate change. The intertwined nature of migration patterns underscores the interconnectedness of various species across different regions. Changing climate conditions disrupt these migratory dances, impacting species' survival, reproduction, and the ecosystems they inhabit. As we witness these shifts, it becomes clear that the effects of altered migrations extend beyond individual species, affecting the delicate balance of entire ecosystems. By recognizing the importance of these journeys and working collectively to mitigate climate change, we can help ensure that the awe-inspiring phenomenon of migration continues to enrich our world and preserve the intricate relationships that sustain life on Earth. Climate change isn't just an abstract concept. It's a force that's reshaping the very fabric of life on Earth. One of its most alarming impacts is its direct contribution to species extinction. As temperatures rise, sea levels increase, and weather patterns shift, habitats become uninhabitable and food sources are disrupted, pushing many species to the brink. This trend isn't limited to a few isolated cases. It's a widespread phenomenon that disproportionately affects certain species, triggers cascading effects on food webs, and poses dire consequences for biodiversity and ecosystem stability. Understanding these dynamics underscores the urgency of conservation efforts. Vulnerable species and climate pressures. Imagine you're a polar bear, relying on sea ice to hunt seals. As the Arctic warms and ice melts, your hunting grounds become scarce, forcing you to travel longer distances and expend more energy. Species like the polar bear, which are highly specialized and dependent on specific conditions, are particularly vulnerable to climate-related pressures. Similarly, species that live at higher altitudes or latitudes have limited options for migration or adaptation as temperatures rise, increasing their risk of extinction. Disrupted food webs. Consider the scenario of a warming ocean affecting the distribution of plankton, tiny organisms that form the base of marine food chains. As ocean temperatures rise, plankton might migrate to cooler waters, disrupting the entire food web. Fish that rely on plankton for food could decline, affecting predators higher up the chain, including birds, mammals, and even humans. These cascading effects ripple through ecosystems, illustrating the delicate balance of interdependence among species. Biodiversity loss and ecosystem stability. Imagine a forest where trees provide habitat for countless species of insects, birds, and mammals. As temperatures rise, the forest becomes drier and more prone to wildfires. Many tree species struggle to adapt, while others might disappear altogether. The insects that relied on those trees for food and shelter also suffer, impacting the animals that feed on them. This chain reaction ultimately leads to a loss of biodiversity and destabilizes the entire ecosystem. Furthermore, as certain species disappear due to climate-related pressures, the services they provide to ecosystems are lost. Bees, for example, play a crucial role in pollinating plants that produce fruits and seeds, a service that's fundamental for the survival of many plants and the animals that depend on them. The disappearance of key species can set off a domino effect, affecting the health and resilience of entire ecosystems. Conservation and mitigation efforts. Understanding the complex relationship between climate change, species extinction, and ecosystem dynamics is the first step toward effective conservation and mitigation strategies. Protected areas. Establishing and managing protected areas ensures that vulnerable species have safe spaces to live and reproduce, preserving critical habitats that might otherwise be lost. Habitat restoration. Restoring and protecting natural habitats allows species to adapt and provides the resources they need to survive in changing conditions. Assisted migration. In some cases, it might be necessary to assist species in migrating to more suitable habitats, helping them avoid extinction. Climate action. Addressing the root cause of climate change by reducing greenhouse gas emissions is essential to slowing down the rate of warming and giving species more time to adapt. Conservation partnerships. Collaborative efforts among governments, organizations, and individuals are crucial to address the complex challenges posed by climate change and species extinction. Urgency of action. The urgency of addressing climate change and its impact on species extinction cannot be overstated. As temperatures continue to rise, the window of opportunity to save vulnerable species and ecosystems is narrowing. The loss of even a single species can set off a chain reaction of consequences that reverberates throughout ecosystems, affecting everything from nutrient cycling to climate regulation. It's a stark reminder that the fate of all species, including humans, is intertwined with the health of our planet. Every effort to reduce carbon emissions, protect habitats, and promote sustainable practices matters. Conservation isn't just about saving individual species, it's about safeguarding the intricate web of life that sustains us all. By recognizing the connections between climate change, species extinction, and ecosystem stability, we can drive change and work toward a future where the diversity of life on Earth is celebrated and preserved for generations to come. The intricate dance of life on Earth is influenced by the delicate balance of ecosystems. However, this balance is being disrupted by the changing climate, opening new avenues for disease transmission and parasite proliferation among wildlife populations. As temperatures rise and ecosystems shift, the link between climate change and the spread of diseases becomes increasingly evident. This phenomenon raises questions about how changing conditions influence disease dynamics, the challenges faced by wildlife in adapting to new threats, and the potential impacts to both animal populations and human health. Climate change as a catalyst for disease. Imagine a warmer world where habitats shift and disease-carrying organisms thrive in new environments. Climate change provides the perfect stage for diseases and parasites to exploit these changing conditions. Warmer temperatures can extend the range of disease vectors like mosquitoes, ticks, and fleas, allowing them to spread diseases to regions where they were previously uncommon. This expansion creates new opportunities for diseases to jump between species and cross geographic boundaries. Influence on disease dynamics. Consider a scenario where a warming climate leads to more frequent and intense rainfall. This excess moisture creates ideal breeding grounds for disease-carrying mosquitoes. As a result, diseases like malaria, dengue fever, and Zika virus can spread more easily. The life cycle of parasites can also be affected. Warmer temperatures might speed up their development, leading to more frequent and severe infections. Additionally, changes in temperature and humidity can impact the survival of pathogens in the environment, affecting their ability to infect hosts. Challenges faced by wildlife. Wildlife populations that have evolved in specific environments and under certain disease pressures may be ill-equipped to deal with the emergence of new diseases. Imagine a species of frog that has lived in a cool and moist environment for generations. If a disease-carrying fungus spreads due to changing climate conditions, the frogs might not have the necessary immunity to fight off the infection. Similarly, species with limited mobility or small populations might struggle to escape the spread of diseases. Impacts on animal populations and human health. The consequences of disease transmission in wildlife populations can be far-reaching. As diseases spread, animal populations can experience declines or even face extinction. These losses can disrupt ecosystems, affecting everything from predator-prey relationships to the health of plant communities. Moreover, diseases that affect wildlife can sometimes spill over to domestic animals and humans, posing risks to public health. Consider a case where a disease affecting migratory birds also infects chickens on a nearby farm. This can lead to economic losses for farmers, as well as the potential for the disease to mutate and affect humans. The Ebola virus, for example, has been linked to the hunting and consumption of infected wildlife. Climate change can amplify these risks by creating conditions conducive to the spread of diseases to new areas. Mitigation and adaptation strategies. Understanding the connection between climate change and disease spread is crucial for designing effective strategies to mitigate the impacts. Surveillance and monitoring. Early detection and monitoring of disease outbreaks in wildlife populations can help prevent their spread to domestic animals and humans. Habitat protection. Conserving natural habitats can help maintain the balance of ecosystems and reduce stressors that can weaken animal immune systems. Vaccination and treatment. Developing vaccines and treatments for wildlife diseases can be essential for preventing outbreaks and protecting vulnerable populations. Climate resilience. Enhancing the resilience of ecosystems to climate change can help reduce the susceptibility of wildlife to disease by maintaining their natural habitats. Global collaboration. Addressing the challenges posed by the intersection of climate change and disease spread requires international cooperation to share knowledge, resources, and expertise. The intricate interplay between climate change, disease transmission, and wildlife populations underscores the urgency of addressing these complex challenges. As temperatures rise and ecosystems transform, the emergence of new diseases and the spread of existing ones pose threats to both animal populations and human health. Conservation efforts that focus on protecting habitats, monitoring disease dynamics, and developing mitigation strategies are essential for preserving the health of ecosystems and the species that rely on them. The health of our planet is intricately linked to the health of its inhabitants, human, animal, and plant alike, and addressing these interconnected challenges is essential for a sustainable future. Ocean acidification is a consequence of the ocean's role in absorbing excess carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. As carbon dioxide dissolves in seawater, it forms carbonic acid, leading to a decrease in the pH of the oceans. This change in acidity affects a wide range of marine organisms, especially those that rely on calcium carbonate to build their shells and skeletons. Coral reefs, for instance, are highly sensitive to ocean acidification. As their skeletal structures weaken, it becomes more challenging for coral reefs to provide habitat and protection for countless species of fish, invertebrates, and other marine life. The polar regions, particularly the Arctic, are experiencing warming at almost twice the rate of the rest of the world. This accelerated warming leads to the shrinking of polar ice and habitat loss for species uniquely adapted to these harsh environments. Polar bears, which rely on sea ice to hunt seals, are particularly vulnerable. As the ice disappears, they must swim longer distances, expending more energy and facing increased risks. This disruption of these ecosystems can have cascading effects on the entire food web, impacting species like seals, whales, and seabirds. Tropical rainforests found near the equator are biodiversity hotspots that host an astonishing array of species. The intricate balance of these ecosystems can be disrupted by changing rainfall patterns, which affect the availability of food and water sources for animals and plants alike. Droughts and forest fires become more frequent in these regions, threatening species that are adapted to consistent humidity. As species struggle to adapt to these changing conditions, there's an increased risk of extinctions and the potential loss of valuable genetic diversity. Alpine ecosystems, characterized by high altitudes and rugged terrain, are highly sensitive to warming temperatures. Glacial retreat is a noticeable consequence of climate change in these regions. As glaciers melt and snowpacks diminish, the availability of fresh water decreases, affecting both local communities and ecosystems downstream. Animals like mountain goats and pikas, which are adapted to cold environments, face challenges in finding suitable habitats. Moreover, the loss of glaciers can impact the timing and availability of freshwater resources, affecting species that depend on them. Invasive species are non-native organisms that can outcompete native species and disrupt ecosystem balance. Climate change can create more favorable conditions for these invasive species to thrive, as changing temperatures and habitats offer them new opportunities to establish themselves. For instance, warmer temperatures might allow invasive insects to survive in regions where they couldn't previously. This can lead to a decline in native species and alter ecosystem dynamics, affecting the availability of resources and potentially creating new ecological challenges. Thank you for watching, and please subscribe to the channel.